Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the SYLBOURNE Show, and I'm your host, SYLBOURNE Sidil. Joining us today, we have Hayley Short, who works on a number of social and political projects to benefit her fellow South Africans at home and those living here in the diaspora in the UK. Hayley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much for gracing us on, is it Mandela Day? What is something special about today?
Yes, Nelson Mandela Day. So 18th of July is his birthday.
Yes.
And obviously we celebrate his life and his legacy and what he did for the country.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, Mandela Day. Now, listen, I'm going to say this. I do not know what I do for recognition, money or fame. I do it because I firmly believe that South Africans can heal and unite to build and make the Rainbow Nation ideal a reality. And I believe this can be achieved within my lifetime. Now, that's not my quote. Hayley, do you know who's that quote from?
Mine.
Really? Wow, that's awesome. Now tell me, what is it that Hayley does, and what drives you for that particular quote?
What Hayley does, I've been living in the UK for the last 7 years, been involved with the East African community for the last 3.5, and just completely found my passion. And I would never have imagined in a million years when I was younger that this is what I'd be doing. Yes. So anything that's community-oriented, yes, charity-oriented, anything that's community building and has a positive impact on South Africans, whether it be abroad or back home. Yes. I'm happy to get myself behind and support.
Right. So you're a passionate South African living in the UK.
You can sum me up in those 3 words, yes.
Wow, awesome, awesome. Now, you're raised in South Africa, of course, and during the abolition of apartheid and the transition to democracy, when you recently visited South Africa, just recently, what changes have you seen from that era to now?
I think in terms of infrastructure and the economy, I can't really comment too much. Obviously, I was a child,
yes,
doing sort of towards the end of apartheid.
Yes.
But I think in terms of social engagement, social awareness, I think people are a lot more open. I think people are, the sort of minds and hearts of people, yes, there's definitely a positive vibe, and you see it through just, kind of the sort of new sensation of the last year or two, which is like, yeah, random acts of kindness, and there's just so much more social cohesion, despite, yes, we do still have our problems, we do still have, separate ideas and ideologies, and there is still, the people that were pro-apartheid, that aren't so pro the democracy. Right. But I think overall there's a far more positive aspect and element to...
there's a more positive aspect of South Africa coming together.
Yeah.
Even though the news recently had shown some sort of conflict at different times with how some believe that it is not happening after the legacy, which points to Mandela Day. Would you say that the legend is intact after South Africa heading towards a vision that Mandela had for the country?
Definitely in terms of people's hearts and minds.
Yes.
I think the majority of the country does want to see that ideal happen.
Yes.
And there is a lot of work being done towards it. So I think the average South African citizen, I'd say yes, it's definitely alive.
Yes.
I do think when it comes to sort of government and the sort of overview, obviously with all the issues that we have in the country, yes, from poverty to our economy and crime and so on, there is a question of, is it really alive?
Is it
really, especially from a sort of outsider's perspective, when you're not living on the ground,
yes,
and seeing what's being done and what's going on in the country, I think it is quite eady to kind of go, well, no, it's not.
I'm getting a bit disenchanted if anything like that.
But I think in the hearts and minds of people, it definitely is, and I think we're a country of hope and optimism, yes, despite any issues we have or anything that's thrown at us.
Okay, fantastic. Now, what I really want to talk to you about again is, many countries talk about voting from where they are living within the diaspora in relation to home. You talk about vote is home, There was a non-partisan effort that allowed the South African diaspora to vote from abroad, which you are an advocate for. Yeah. Tell us, how successful would you say the campaign have been?
I think it was quite successful. It was an online campaign. It was run with virtually no budget. So we did rely on social media in particular, yes, to help spread the message.
A bit of a Barack Obama effect?
Sorry?
A bit of a Barack Obama effect?
A little bit.
Yes, yes.
I think we only ran it for approximately 10 months leading up to the elections. And I think overall, I think it was successful. I think that the feedback we had from it was very positive.
Yes.
So what we did was we ran it as a non-partisan campaign, so it was very light-hearted, positive,
Yes.
and it was more about engagement and voter education,
Yes.
about how to vote overseas, why you should vote, what you need to do, and about giving back to South Africa and making your voice heard. The only thing I think that we probably lacked in is numbers, reach. Obviously, those that aren't online,
Well,
we didn't get to. But I think there's definitely a big calling for the Vote Home campaign to continue.
So therefore, it is just like how South Africa is an idea, which is now a reality, and it's a dream, and it's a vision, and it is happening. You're also saying that this concept of the Vote for Home, while it just started, it is actually getting bigger as each time goes by. Yeah,
definitely. I think it's become a really good platform for us to engage one-on-one with people.
Yes.
And I know a lot of my friends are, they're like, oh, you're crazy. Why are you spending so much time discussing politics and, educating and engaging with people? And it's those one-on-one relationships. If I engage with someone and someone goes, oh, I didn't know I could vote abroad, or, oh, I didn't understand what my vote actually meant. They then talk to their friends who talk to their friends, and it's sort of a domino effect. And the feedback that I've had, I get messages from people who've heard via, and it's been really, really positive.
Well, it's a big thing. I mean, the Vote from Home, because with the diaspora effect, because the Americans they do that. South Africa, Australia, and New Zealand, they do that. But Caribbean countries, I know that one of the things that they're all talking about is how can the people from the Caribbean or in the diaspora, like in the UK, able to vote. How do you see that can affect other countries? Do you see this is like a prototype, a template which you're setting?
It certainly could be. I mean, we have to understand that the world is going global.
Yes.
We have internet and airplanes that we can get from one side of the country to the other in a matter of hours. And I think that each country, each government needs to fully take the opportunity to make sure that their voting system reflects that.
Yes.
And I think it's certainly, doing it through the non-partisan way. Yes, each party from a particular country can do their own campaigns, as we did, but having a non-partisan one, which is just a platform for educating and inspiring people to get involved and vote, I think it's a really good thing, and it should be used globally.
Without you saying, so therefore, when you're on that platform there, you're not representing a particular party.
No, so it was started off by the DA abroad,
Yes.
which is the Democratic Alliance. They're the formal opposition party to the ANC back home.
Yes.
And we clearly stated that. However, everything that we put out, you know, in the lead up to elections, we put out stories, media stories about the main different political parties,
Yes.
and we tried to make it as completely non-partisan as possible. It was very down the line, informative, no favoritism. We obviously have our political party pages, which people know about if they want to follow a particular party or find out what the policies are. But this campaign ran completely non-partisan, and I think that's what really made it work.
As we're talking about voting, Hayley, in South Africa, you've got the party list, which is the proportional representation, whereas in Britain, we have first past the post. The recent elections, you have a situation where many people are saying, hang on a second, we've got a government which is in power, which was voted in by less than 60%. Do you think there's need for reform in the UK?
It's a tricky question. You know, I think it's important to take a look at each country. I don't think you can kind of take one thing that works in another country and kind of, you know, impose it on another. Here there, I think, are 14 main political parties. And there's pros and cons with both.
You mean the Looney Loon Party?
Sorry?
The Looney Loon Party? You're saying, you got some crazy parties out there. The Mad Hatter Party?
Well, in South Africa, I think there's about 16 parties that are represented.
Yes.
And there's like a list of about 70 that aren't represented.
Yes.
And there's just so many, it's quite scary in a way. But also it shows the democracy is alive and well because people have a voice, you know, they have different ideologies. But I think there's pros and cons between the two. So obviously with the UK system, it's a constituency and they vote in a person to represent them in Parliament. Now, if you've got a really charismatic person and they get the majority vote from that constituency, they go forward, which is great because it's directly, that person's then directly responsible to, and they have to answer to their constituency. But then, you know, the issues for that constituency might not reflect the rest of the country.
Yes.
So yeah, there's pros and cons on that. And then with what we have in South Africa, the proportional representation, it's everybody's votes count.
Yes.
Whereas in the UK, it's
not everybody vote counts.
Not everybody votes
actually
count.
So do you think that it should be reformed?
I think so.
I'm putting you on the spot, of course.
No, that's fine. I think there should be, and you know, kind of obviously, you know, taking an interest now in UK politics and kind of learning the difference between the two. So a couple of years ago, the DA back home put forward this suggestion to have a mixture of both. So in South Africa, we have 400 MPs, and what they are saying is 200 should be from first party past the post, and 200 should be proportional representation to make it more fair, because with the proportional representation, every vote counts, but then it's up to the party leaders to decide who the MPs are that go forward. You get put onto a list, and it's that way. It's more the parties deciding who should go forward, not the people.
Not the people.
So I think to have a combination of the two.
Right.
Would,
so
would
there need to be some look into that. Now we're still into voting, and we've got, of course, South African viewership as well. You know, SYLBOURNE TV is global, as you know, and you're contributing to the online media platform southafrica.com, and I've heard that the site is not fully representative or non-partisan. What would you say to those South African who are listening now in the diaspora who feel that way? I'm
glad you actually asked that question, because obviously I've only started with the South African a month ago, and obviously I have heard, you know, over the course of the last few years of being involved with the South African community. I can put that myth to rest. It's not politically biased whatsoever.
It's not politically biased.
No. But I think, you know, whereas back home, 80% of the country is a black population, and obviously the majority is an ANC follower, supporter, whereas here, the South African diaspora is a different mix. You've got majority white South Africans, and obviously the content that's coming out is coming more from white contributors. So how the South African works is we have volunteer contributors, and anyone can volunteer, anyone can write articles for us, and I completely open up to anyone who wants to write. And my role in the UK, being the UK representative, is to help grow and nurture the South African diaspora community over here. And I would absolutely love, you know, personally, I wish I'd taken Zulu and Xhosa at school, and I would love to learn, and I'd love to know what's going on within the black communities here. So I completely invite the different diaspora, the different communities of the diaspora to come forward. So
therefore there's an openness to invite for other interaction as well.
Definitely.
Right. You have worked also, I understand, with Food Bank in South Africa, which is a growing campaign here in Britain. It is now seem like a part of the fabric, or becoming a part of the fabric. A lot of the rise being through the austerity, and there are lots of debates about a food bank. Now, from your experience, do food bank work?
Long term, no. Short term, yes.
It's a catch up then, if anything.
Yeah, there's quite a good concept, which is hands out, hands up, handshake, and that's the transition that we need to move. And food bank in the short term is more about handouts. And then, you know, the concern with that is that people become reliant on that system. And it's kind of making them less independent, whereas food banks need to shift from just being a handout to community solutions. So, you know, for example, in South Africa, we have programs where we provide some foods to a community, but then they'll grow their own fruit and vegetables. And we provide, you know,
seed or whatever.
We'll provide the seed, or provide, you know, sort of, you know, tin foods or other items that they might need. And I think there needs to be a far greater shift, and I don't think that it's happening here or back home quick enough to move towards making communities and making people more independent and
more self-reliant. So what you're saying, it won't really reduce food poverty then?
No. For the short term, yes, it does. And for the short term, to make sure that children can learn, because they're not not hungry. Children can't learn on an empty stomach. Yes, it's certainly, there's a huge need for it. You know, 1/4 of the South African population is hungry, and I believe there's food banks popping up every week or every couple of weeks here in the UK. So definitely there's, for the short-term solution, yes, but I think that Food Bank and other organisations and government need to certainly collaborate and work a lot quicker
Okay.
towards the long-term
Good, good.
solutions.
No, that's good. Now, as an inspiring person, what would you say is the drive behind ethic, and what legacy do you wish to leave behind through your various work, and of course, with inspiring others as a proactive person, and for people to get involved in things?
I don't really. There's nothing that I sort of one particular thing that I live by. I do firmly believe that everybody is where they are in life for a reason.
Yes.
And I believe that timing is perfect, even though it might not seem it at the time. And, you know, going back to Mandela Day, and Mandela said, you know, he was like, if you're going to live your life, do it by these three things. Free yourself, free others, and serve.
Yes.
And I think, hopefully, my legacy would certainly cover the service part.
Yes.
You know, it's freeing yourself, educating yourself, and in doing so, you're then open to free others and educate and inspire others through service.
Fantastic. So what was your national hero in South Africa? Who inspires you?
Who inspires
Why
me?
they inspire you?
There's so many. Obviously, Mandela and all the, you know, anti-apartheid stalwarts.
Yes.
And I think you can draw something from each person. There's a lot of musicians, you know, Johnny Clegg and Brenda Mfasi, and I think everyone, there's so many.
I'm sure the South Africans, they understand what you're saying, you know what I mean? All these different names.
You won't know the names.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from musicians to politicians, obviously, you know, the sort of ANC stalwarts, but then there's also Helen Suzman, who, you know, back in the day it was the Democratic Party, and, you know, she was the only representative of the party in Parliament, but she stood strong, and she, you know, she stood firm. You know, there's so many incredible South Africans doing amazing things.
Thing. So now, what's your mantra? What's the word you live by? What's your what's a quote that you live? I know we mentioned a quote earlier, which I found in my research for you, and I put that up. But what would you say is a quote or that mantra that you live by, Hayley?
I genuinely don't have one. You know, as I said, I was, you know, drawing inspiration from so many people. I really don't have one. I think at the end of the day, it's just about staying true to yourself.
Staying true to yourself.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So that's a good one. Staying true to yourself. And that's powerful. I think people need to stay true to themselves. Good. Hayley, listen, it was great having you on the show.
Thank
listen,
you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. And Hayley, thank you. To learn more about Hayley and their different projects, visit our website at SYLBOURNE.com. And remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel, SYLBOURNE TV. Thank you for watching us. Hayley, once again,
thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on the SYLBOURNE Show.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.